Bonjour. Hello, Paris. Hello, ChangeNOW. How are you doing this afternoon? Enjoying the conference? Yeah, come on, give me a little clap and encouragement. There you go. Voilà, it is my honor to be here today in my hometown of Paris. And it is even more an honor to be talking about such an important topic today as education. So the name of our whole session is Educating Planetary Champions. And I have five amazing guests who will take us on a journey for all the stages of life, from childhood to adulthood to wisdom of the old age. And we are in for a treat. So please stay tuned. Just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Sophie Bidwell. And in my day life, I see change-making from two angles. The first one is from the top down. So I advise CEOs and boards on their strategies for the transition economy. And then also, I have a business called Springwise, which you will see around, which has been spotting innovations for positive change for the past 20 years. So I also see change-making from the point of view of innovators and from the bottom up. And it's really fascinating to be at that junction. But what I wanted to say in relation to education is that when I speak to boards and CEOs about making change happen, about sustainability, still today, one of the prevailing emotions and behaviors that I observe is that of the freeze. It's so much to take in, it's so complicated, or it seems so complicated that I don't know where to start. Please help me. And I do believe that education is a solution to that, and had these CEOs and seniors been educated differently, maybe we wouldn't have this freeze moment where we don't quite know what to do to make change happen. So this is what we're going to explore today, education. So my speakers pretty much believe that the education system is broken. So they are going to help us rethink education and how to educate planetary champions. And as I said, we're going to go on a journey through the stages of life to learn about how to educate planetary champions. So the first thing we're going to do, and I can see Rebecca on my screen here, is that I'm going to sit down and chat to Rebecca and Nkunde. So please welcome Rebecca for me. Here she is. So Rebecca has been an example of somebody who changes the world through their actions. She's a very inspirational young woman, and she is joining us from Zambia, which is where she lives. She is a qualified teacher, and she has decided to dedicate her life to climate and to social change and justice through teaching, but also through innovation and entrepreneurship. And she has developed a lot of solutions and actions around climate and social change. She has received several awards for youth-led innovations, and she is an inspiration, full stop. So, Rebecca, welcome to ChangeNOW.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
So I can't help but tell our audience the story of our attempts to connect, because Rebecca and I, it took us about 3 days to actually connect and prepare this session. And I was getting a bit nervous, and in the end I received an email from Rebecca saying, listen, what happened is that the cables got stolen in where I live, in my area, and therefore I had no power, and therefore I had no computer, and therefore I couldn't speak to you. And Rebecca, just to help the audience connect with your life, could you please maybe describe your environment where you work and live?
Okay, hi everybody. Like Sophie has said, my name is Rebecca Nkunde. I'm connecting with you guys from Zambia, Ndola, the northern part of my country in the Copperbelt province. So I live in a city, I wouldn't say the second largest city, it's one of the cities in my country. And like Sophie said, about 3 days ago, there's been a stealing spree. There's been a couple of people who want to steal cables to sell. I hear they're selling them to the Congo for copper and so on and so forth. So about 3 days ago, a service cable that supplies power to our house and the next got stolen. So it was a bit of a challenge for me to charge my phone, to charge my computer. Therefore, I had to go to the next road, just a few meters away from my home, to a friend's house to charge my my computer and so on and so forth. So it was a bit of a challenge, but fortunate enough, just this morning we had our power supplier restore power supply to our house. The cable has been fixed, and the police are working around the clock to try and find out and capture the culprits who are busy vandalizing public property in our area. Thank you.
And Rebecca, help us understand what a typical week in Rebecca's life looks like. What are your activities at the moment?
All right. A typical week for me, I'm a full-time mom, as well as a full-time teacher, as well as a full-time climate change and social change advocate every single day, except on Mondays and Fridays. Those days are dedicated specifically to doing my outreach work, where I go to communities and schools to teach young people on a lot of issues, climate change being one of them, and also trying to empower them with skills and, both physical skills and mental skills that will help them to just run through the course of life. So Mondays are basically just outreach. I go to far places from my home, sometimes in rural areas, sometimes in urban areas. And Tuesdays, I'm planting trees. As I told you, I'm a very keen climate change and environmental activist. I want to plant, me and my team are aiming to plant about 15,000 trees by the end of this year. So busy from Tuesday to Thursday, I'm planting trees and also being a mom and a wife at the same time. So it's just a packed week, basically.
Fantastic. And explain to us why you have chosen to dedicate your life to those causes. What's the path that led you there?
Oh, well, I'm very passionate about these things, and first of all, it started as a hobby. I love art, I love to sing, and I love crafts. And at the beginning, it was just a hobby. I'll do crafts, I'll do all sorts of things, and then in the long run, I got connected to an orphanage where I was rendering my services, teaching women to make baskets and all kinds of things from plastic and recyclable material. And the purpose of that was to help them have a source of income. And, when you are not out there in society to see what other people are going through, you would think everybody else is comfortable. But being exposed to those environments and seeing the things that other people have to go through to earn a living, to put food on the table, prompted me to say, if I am comfortable, I should help other people become comfortable. And I believe that the world is it's a big place, but it's comprising of people who form up a community. And if those people do not help one another to try and achieve a greater goals and to make better lives for themselves, I think nobody else will. So I've taken it upon myself and my family. I'm passing this on even to my children to just live this life of service and of contribution, giving back to the community where you live in, and helping other people become the better version of themselves through skills that are physical, mental skills, and also leadership skills.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. And would you mind taking us into your classroom a little bit? So imagine we are having you as a teacher. What do you teach children? What are maybe the modules, the themes, the questions that you go through with them?
Okay, so life in Africa is a bit different from life in Europe. Here, I know, okay, maybe we're just the same, but there's some slight difference. And here in Africa, statistics show that 1 in 3 children will be sent to prison before they turn 20 or in their teenage lives. And so hearing and seeing those statistics really just hurts me and pains me so much. So when I'm out there in my classroom, I'm trying to help young people understand that it's possible to make good values and prevent yourself from being arrested or dying prematurely. And it's possible to be a productive and a citizen of a country when you make good values. So for example, I am teaching, which is my favorite topic. I like to teach them about values and valuables. I want to let the young people understand the difference between values and valuables. And I also want them to understand that one can have positive and negative values as well as valuables. So which is the most important thing to have between a value and a valuable? It's automatically having good values. So I make my lessons very interactive to the point where young people get to participate in the topic, and they get to sort of teach themselves while I facilitate the teaching. So yeah, basically that's what my classroom is like.
That's amazing. You have just, there's a gentleman called Mark Carney, who was the governor of the Bank of England, who talks about exactly the same thing, and he's a representative for the United Nations around the environment, and he talks about values and value in very much the same way that you're talking about it now. So thanks for sharing that. And Rebecca, tell us about the youth-led solutions and the YMCA work that you're doing.
Okay, so youth-led solutions are basically innovations and activities that are spearheaded by the youth. And I happen to be one of the people who are in the forefront to help young people come up with solutions that are helping, especially in the fight against climate change. So youth-led solutions is something that is at the core of what I do, because I'm working with young people. And basically we're going around communities educating and teaching young people the importance of contributing towards the 1.5 degrees of the SDGs concerning climate change, the Paris Agreement. So what we do is we go around communities teaching young people, teaching them to recycle, reuse, and repurpose all their waste. And also we're teaching them the causes and the effects of climate change. And from what we have seen, people really do not understand what climate change is. They know that a lot of things are going on around them, but they cannot relate them to climate change. So what we're doing is trying to bring the climate change issue closer to them based on the happenings that are going on around the country, our very own country, and the things that we're experiencing, and also teaching them what is the contribution that each and every one of us can what is it that we can do to contribute to the combating of climate change together. So this youth-led solution is really basically something that has so far gone well, because we have seen the results of the things that we're talking about, and young people have kind of gotten the idea, gotten the gist, and they're fully participatory on their own. I'll give an example of one of the schools that I visited, which is Lubuto Secondary School, just a few kilometers away from my house. We taught young people to recycle plastic and make different accessories, including household appliances like lanterns, and they made handbags, they made bracelets, they made necklaces from those things. And we just went there and had about 3 sessions with them. But shortly after that, one of the heads from the same school called me and told me young people want to form a club, because the things that they're learning from this program is very helpful, and they're going out in the community to share with their parents and their friends, and it's working. So one of the teachers there called to just congratulate us and tell us that we're really doing a good job, and that they want more of these sessions to continue happening at their school.
And is this something that's local, or is it connected to a more global network of change, these YMCA youth initiatives?
They are connected to a larger global network of things, because I think it's in every other YMCA, but it's done differently. according to the association. So here in Zambia, we were tackling recycling, and this year we're doing a project called Earth Replenished, where we're going around in different parts of the country to replant trees, because as it stands today in Zambia, we lose about 300,000 forest cover per year. And we have given ourselves a mandate to try and replenish the trees and the vegetation that has been lost. And mostly it's lost through the cutting down of trees for charcoal and construction and so on and so forth. So it's part of a larger global network of YMCAs, but as a local association, we're taking it a step further by doing everything that we can, including educating people, because I believe that if people don't have the information, they cannot act on anything that they do not know. So our job is actually going around communities, educating them and sensitizing them, giving them the correct information that they need to act upon in order for them to sort of change their behavior or have a mindset change in regards to everything that's going on in our society, in our country at large.
Which brings us back to our question, which is how to educate planetary champions. So maybe what are the tips that you would share with the audience here about what it takes to educate planetary champions?
Really, education is a very wide topic, and some of the things that are overlooked in many cases are people consider education just to be a classroom formal setup. But I love a non-formal kind of way of education, because I believe that way people, familiarize themselves with the information giver, and then they get to put themselves in a position where they understand that this information that is being given to me is not just for people who have completed their secondary level of education or tertiary level. So I've taken a really laid-back step, or I would say I've downgraded education to something that is applicable in every other situation, not only for people who have been to school, not only for people who have been to college, but it's for everybody. Education is supposed to more like be an umbrella that brings a lot of people together. And I believe people must have the equal opportunity in order to have a leveled playing field to participate and contribute to the development of nations or the development of our planet. Or for a better tomorrow, a lot of people have to undergo education, except we need to understand what sort of education to give to what sort of people. There are people who've never stepped foot in a classroom. There are people who've not sat on a desk, people who do not have access to computers. And this is where an organization like the one I'm working with, or people like me, step up and take education to their doorstep, where we sit down with them and interact with them and make them understand that it's not just, being in a classroom that makes them educated. It's just having the correct information to apply in what situation.
Rebecca, thank you. So we've come to the end of our time, I'm afraid, but it was so inspirational to speak to you, and thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you, Rebecca, on behalf of ChangeNOW and our audience.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Great to have
having me.
you.
And great to have me. Enjoy the rest of the
Thank you.
session.
Goodbye, Rebecca.
Bye.
Okay, how inspiration was this? So, this is changemakers from the ground in conditions that are not often easy. So it's really inspirational to hear from Rebecca. So next up, we have got a panel. And it is my pleasure to invite on stage Tom and Rebecca. And Laetitia, sorry. It's my favorite first name in the world as well. So Tom and Laetitia. I've been told this too, but I'm not the boss here. Thank you for joining me. So let me just introduce both of you quickly. So ladies first, Laetitia, you are the sustainability manager at Escp. Escp is one of the leading business schools in France and was actually ranked #1 in the 2021 ChangeNOW Leseco ranking on schools that are changing the world. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And you have devoted your career to sustainability and positive change, generally speaking, working with NGOs like the Shift project, where you kept the public updated on COP21 proceedings. That probably wasn't very easy. Then at Enedis, which is the French national electricity distribution company that plays a vital role in the energy transition. And you have also been a journalist with a focus on environment. So that's Laetitia. And Tom is the CEO and founder of On Purpose. On Purpose is a social enterprise that develops leaders who will help transform the economy. That is no small statement. And his career spans private, public, and non-profit sectors. Tom has a PhD in cancer research. I'd love to hear the story about the transition between that and what you're doing now. Worked at McKinsey, worked for the CEO of Comic Relief, ran international operations of RED, a business founded to eliminate AIDS in Africa, goodness me, and is also a trustee of Global Action Plan and the International Future Forum. That's quite a mouthful. I hope I've made justice to your amazing career. So welcome, both of you. And what I'd like to start with is very simply, if you could tell us what brings you to this stage. And we're here to talk about educating planetary champions. So what's your angle on that and your story? Ladies first.
So hi everyone, thank you very much for having me. So why are we here as ESCP Business School? You mentioned we were ranked first in the ChangeNOW rankings. We're very happy about this. The reason that we're here is because we have implemented over the last few years quite an ambitious target, which is to train 100% of our students on sustainability. We are still, we know we're not there yet, but we are making a lot of progress in that regard. We've implemented many programs, and we're trying to accompany the leaders of tomorrow and engage them in the change that we want to see in the world as well.
Okay.
So yeah. And I'd like to mention, I'm not a professor directly, but I worked a lot with professors, and I've actually helped develop some of the educational program that we offer. So.
Tom, same question?
Yeah, sure. So I can maybe tell you the short story of how the PhD came.
Yes, please.
I thought I was going to become a scientist. I thought I would be an academic, but figured out that was not for me. The next best idea was to work in international development, but I thought I'd better educate myself. I'd better learn something about how the private sector works. I thought that was how the real world works. And so I went into management consultancy. Long story short, I got sufficiently brainwashed that I wanted to figure out how we could more intelligently integrate commercial, social, and environmental ways of working. And after a couple of years after McKinsey, I eventually started up On Purpose. And maybe two more things. One is that I've more recently realized in the last few years is that whilst I got an amazing education, I learned a lot in the private sector. I have also now in the last few years been doing a lot of unlearning of what I learned in the private sector. A lot of my education, a lot of what I was taught was, and often actually not explicitly, but a lot of the assumptions that came with it, I am now realizing are not actually necessarily the case. And I'm now doing quite a lot of unlearning and trying to help other people realize that there are other ways that we can run the world, our economy, and the organizations, especially I'm focused on organizations and how we run those.
So tell the audience a bit about On Purpose. What is it, and how does it do its job?
So as you mentioned, we develop leaders who will help transform the economy. We primarily run a one-year full-time program. We take people who have already had quite successful careers so far and have realized for whatever reason that this is not the career they want to continue for the next 10, 20 years. They want to change and do something more meaningful. They hopefully discover us, they apply. If they get in, they quit their job and they come to us full-time for a year. We put them in full-time paid work. We give them half a day week of training, lots of one-to-one support as well. And most importantly, actually a peer group, a cohort of people that they can learn together with, that they can share their experiences with, and will not only be a resource for that year that they're with us, but actually for the rest of their careers for the next 20, 30, 40 years, when we hope, and we know actually that they do maintain that focus on trying to work towards a better economy.
So I'll ask you in a second about the success stories and where people land eventually. But before I do that, so Laetitia, you're not starting from a blank sheet of paper like Tom in educating Planetary Champions. You have an established business program. How difficult is it to weave in the most important topic of our times into an established education system?
So the thing you need to know about Escp is that we were among the first business school created in 1819 by Jean-Baptiste Say. And one of his famous quotes is actually that natural resources are infinite. So yes, we're coming a long way. I'd like to say this is no longer the belief that stands at Escp. It has been happening for a while, I would say. There were a lot of initiatives led by professors, and obviously students are also quite a good motivator for change. But I think the first course that we ever did on sustainability was created in 1992. Usually I like to say there was the Rio Summit and the first course at Uscp, the same scale. No, but yeah, so it started just about that time, and then we developed since 2018, we've actually aggregated all this hard work that was done, and that led to the creation of the Associate Dean for Sustainability at our school, who sits at the ExCom, so with the board of directors, and there was the creation of the academic department. So I think more than difficulty, it was more about getting organized, because there were already a lot of things happening, but it was more about bringing them together in order to have a stronger impact.
And is the change going as fast as you believe it should be, or are there some barriers along the way that...
no one can say yes to that question, I would think.
That is true.
I would think, yeah, I mean, obviously this isn't a big organization. We have 6 campuses of all Europe. So change is happening. It's very fast on some end, and it takes a bit of a longer time for sure. But, you know, I think as long as we keep the momentum going, it's progressing.
Great.
For sure.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Rebecca, which is, so to speak, to bring us in your classroom or in your modules. You know, how do you educate Planetary Champions? What do you need to teach them, and how do you do that? So maybe, Tom, if you can...
Sure. Well, there are a couple of things, I guess, about how we do that. The first is that we believe very much that this is not just an academic thing. You have to experience it, and this is why you work full-time when you're on purpose. Also, the importance of learning from each other and having that very strong peer support group. But actually, most importantly, and what I'm most focused on is that if we really want to transform the economy, that economy needs to be rooted in a different set of values, in a different set of beliefs about how the world works. We are not going to be able to change the current system, the current paradigm, if you like, enough to make it sustainable, regenerative, just, all those things. We need to make those very fundamental changes. So increasingly what we are doing it on purpose is to try and is to help people see that it is possible to do business or to run organizations with very different values. And one of the best ways that we have found to do that is to find those inspiring examples of organizations that are already out there, that are working in ways that you think should never be possible. If you've got a classic management education, you think, well, you should never do that. That should not work. That should not be possible. But actually, these organizations are all around us. They are doing amazing things. They are being successful. They are pioneering and experimenting with genuinely different ways of doing things. And that is increasingly where we are going when we are trying to educate, or we like to use the word learn, when we are trying to help people learn about what a better future can look like.
And Laetitia, same question, or maybe you can tell us what the favorite modules are from students at Uscp around sustainability.
one thing I'd like to mention is one of the challenges that we have. So compared to On Purpose, who usually, well, I'm guessing people who join your program are people that are already aware of the challenges, is the fact that we have 8,000 students graduating every year. And when they come into our school, they're not necessarily aware, or at least, you know, as very knowledgeable on the subject. So we're trying to change that. But at the same time, often we do get students that are quite aware, and so when you do a basic class, you have to think about these two public, is that in the sense that we have a mandatory course now, no matter which entry point you get into Escp, so it goes from bachelor all the way up to executive MBA. So just to give you an idea, bachelor is 18 years old, something like that, and EMBA, I think the average age is 37, and it's obviously people who have been working before, so they work into a different, completely different paradigm. And so, yeah, so we have that challenge of catering to both those public in terms of age, but also in terms of knowledge. So what we're trying to do is actually implement some courses that allow people that already think about their professional career in the field or want to advance their knowledge in that dimension. We offer specialized courses. One of the courses that we have is actually called Design Fiction for Sustainable Future. So it's the idea of using science fiction and design fiction in the sense of imagining what the future would like in a specific field. For example, last year it was on oceans. So what will maritime trade look like in 2050, for example? And so our students work on that. They work with designers, they work with futurists that are consultant, strategic consultant on the future. And yeah, so it's that idea of bringing that level of specialty as well, offering that possibility for students who want to gain more knowledge on a more specific field. We also have an elective on business and climate that we offer. And this is among one of our most popular, I would say, because it was created 2 years ago, I think now, or last year maybe, and we've tripled our registration for that program, so it's very exciting.
I'm actually surprised to hear that the younger generations are not all automatic climate champions, so it's not the case, is it?
We have about 70 nationalities, so you have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, still. Okay, my dream is, you know, out of the window.
Sorry to disappoint you.
So maybe could I ask you to picture for us some before and after stories, so people before they joined your establishments and courses, and then what happens afterwards, and maybe some of the success stories or stories that you'd like to share.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the angles of the school is entrepreneurship. And we have some amazing story about people who became entrepreneurs within the sustainability realm who weren't planning to, and then discovered those issues with us and got engaged into maybe student societies and then decided to build their own project. So we have a lot of inspiring, angle from that. One of our alumni so many of our alumni actually are working in the field as well. We have an incubator, and I would say yearly the angle of sustainability is gaining more and more space within our incubators. So the students that want to create their own company or alumni tend to be a lot more numerous for sure. So yeah.
There's so many different stories to tell, and it's difficult to pick a few, but just to give a couple of examples, there is the corporate lawyer who is now the, I think, head of innovation for Interface in Europe. There is the management consultant who now runs Divine Chocolate, the chocolate company, which is very well known in the UK and US. Here in France, I understand the CEO of Ticket for Change, which some of you may have heard about, is one of our alumni. But it's less about what their jobs are and which organizations they work in. It is really genuinely, and this is what I say to people who come to me. I have a lot of people come to me for advice on what they should do next, what they should do with their career. And I say to them, you know, I don't mind whether you work in a corporate or a social enterprise or a social investor or a charity, you know, because all the organizations actually need to change. You know, this change is not going to come from one angle. It needs to come from everywhere. What I would look for, and what I advise people to look for, is to find an organization that is working with genuinely different values, that is doing something and experimenting with something that is very different. Because the organizations that are doing that, they are the pioneers, whichever sector they are in, they are the pioneers who are trying things out, that are experimenting, and from which, you know, the seeds of a better economy can ultimately grow, and from which a transformed economy will emerge.
Okay, thank you. And we've been talking about systemic change and the need for the whole education system to change. Do you think progress is happening through the various governments that you can observe? And maybe what would be your advice if you could be at that table discussing how we make the whole system change? Can you think of anything that you would share in terms of advice?
I mean, I'm sure no one in this room can say nothing is happening in education, that's for sure. I mean, just this morning, the École Nationale Supérieure, the call about research, about sustainable research is happened. We had AgroParisTech a few days ago, for sure. I mean, things are definitely changing. Also, from the institutional point of view, we see le rapport Jean Jouzel, so the Jean Jouzel report, which actually is recommending that one of the objectives of the higher education institutions are that we have 100% student trained on sustainability. From my point of view, I would say, when you say systemic change, I would agree that there's also a need for a holistic education. I think hard science should be brought back into more management fields, for example. It's important for people to understand that sustainability is also physics and science, and it's not just a political perspective. There's also actual hard facts happening behind that. So I would agree that you need to put those sciences back into the training. I also think it goes both ways. I would think hard science need also to have maybe more knowledge of the impacts that climate change and environmental degradation will have on their future careers from that perspective as well, social perspective.
I mean, what I would say about systemic thinking and systemic change, the interesting thing is that children, small children, actually naturally think in very systemic ways. It is actually our education that trains them out of doing that. And that's in some ways why we need to re-educate, or we need to get the adults to unlearn some of their education. And maybe we need to find an education system that maintains that innate understanding of systems that children have. And ultimately, if there's one thing that I would love people to take away, it is that we have a choice. We have a choice about the type of economy that we want to create. We have a choice upon which values and beliefs we want to base that economy. It is not, a kind of scientifically or God-given thing that we have to conform to the rules and beliefs of our current system. We can make that choice. And we need to make that each as individuals, but we also need to make that collectively. But if we do, then that change that we really want to see, and that transformation that we need to happen, is actually going to happen much, much faster than we think.
Very inspiring, thank you. So we're coming to the end of our session, and here comes my megaphone question, which I ask everyone, and you've kind of answered it, but you have to find another one. So if I give you a megaphone that the whole world can hear, what would you like to say in it?
So yes, I actually resonated very well with what Rebecca said about education not necessarily needing a classroom. I completely agree with that. I would also add that I think we need to, so education is a lifelong process. To me, it's not just higher education and you got your diploma, your degree, and that's it, and you're working and that's over. No, actually, it's a lifelong process from cradle to tomb. You will still get education. One other thing I noticed is that you are a lot more impactful when you try and act as an educator yourself with your own knowledge. So reach out to the people around you, become a beacon of knowledge for those people, and become the educator, try and become the educator yourself, obviously with science-based fact, and with regular knowledge, no fake news, please. But, it's this idea of having a role as an educator. We are all educators, and we are all learners as well. And it's not a generational thing. It's not, it doesn't have to be within a classroom for sure. So yeah, this is what I would say.
Thank you, Laetitia. Tom, have you managed to find one that's as inspiring as the previous one?
I clearly did mine a bit too early. What I will do is I will steal another quote that I had, actually from Satish Kumar, who I know we're going to be very privileged to hear from in a little bit. I think this was last year I heard you say this, Satish, and it has to do with being, I think, courageous about talking about the fact that we need different values. and what kind of values they are. And the phrase that Satish said last year, which stuck in my head and which maybe we can end with here is, love is the answer. What was the question?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Laetitia. Thank you, Tom. I love that one. So what we're going to do now is we have a special message from UNESCO. And we have Stefania Giannini, who is the Assistant Director General for Education at UNESCO, who is going to share a message for us around educating planetary champions. So
our World Conference on Higher Education in Barcelona, where one of our main messages is to reorient programs around our most pressing challenges encompassed by the global goals. And this calls for change. This calls for transdisciplinary approaches to learning open sciences and dynamic connections between research, policy, and society. The future is co-created every day because it's through acts of individual courage, creativity, and care that changes happen. Thank you for inviting UNESCO to join this upbeat event. Our vision of education is humanistic, not economistic. It's collaborative, not competitive. It's transformative, not formatted. It's not by chance that the United Nations 2030 Agenda includes a specific target on ensuring that all learners acquire the knowledge and the skills needed to promote sustainable development, gender equality, human rights, and mostly a culture of peace and nonviolence. We call it Mission 4.7, and it's all the center of our mandate, of our mission. UNESCO leads programs on education for sustainable development and what we call global citizenship. Education is one of the most powerful means we have to reorient our ways of life, to secure the future of our planet. It's a kind of journey of awareness, so to say. Our conviction is that we need a new social contract today for education to reimagine our futures together, to rebalance the basic relationships, our relationship with each other, with the planet, and with technology. This calls for change. This calls for transformations in the very practice of education at all levels to support and drive the green transition. Education systems are not yet putting sustainability into practice, we know. According to our recent survey of curriculum documents from around 100 countries, only half make reference to climate change, and even less to biodiversity. A majority of teachers don't feel equipped, don't feel comfortable to integrate this major concern for humanity into their classes. The same goes for digital literacy, for learning to distinguish fact from fake, for rejecting all forms of discrimination. Transformative learning involves a kind of paradigm shift. It connects mind and heart to a cause, it encourages critical inquiry, it develops empathy, and above all, solutions. There is growing momentum now around this. Let me mention something about it. At our World Conference on Sustainable Development last year in Berlin, more than 70 governments and over 3,000 stakeholders committed to integrating climate action into curricula. Today, our World Conference on Higher Education in Barcelona, where one of our main messages is to reorient programs around our most pressing challenges encompassed by the global goals. And this calls for change. This calls for transdisciplinary approaches to learning open sciences and dynamic connections between research, policy, and society. The future is co-created every day because it's through acts of individual courage, creativity, and care that changes happens. We are now gearing up for a UN summit on transformative education this year in September. Education is under pressure, we know, from the impact of COVID-19, from financing, shortfalls, and more. We need a societal movement to protect and defend education as a preeminent global public good and transformative force. Because our future depends on everyone, without exception, really everyone having access to quality learning throughout life is a must. We need your voice. We need your ideas, your solutions, your passion. And thank you for being champions of education and educating for the planet.
Thank you. So what I take from that is that education is the most powerful means for change, and it's a transformative force. So on that note, it is my immense honor to welcome Satish Kumar on the stage.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll sit down there.
Satish, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Change now.
Change now, change now.
Not tomorrow.
Now.
Now, today.
All right, so Satish needs little introduction, but I will do a little introduction if I may, and I won't do it justice, but you're a former monk and you're a long-term peace and environmental activist. You have been a global change maker for over 50 years, which is incredible. Thank you. And one of the highlights of your inspirational journey is this walk where you decided to walk for 8,000 miles with no money and a message of peace, delivering peace tea bags to world leaders. So that's one of the things that I'm sure defined your journey. And you're also an author. You published several acclaimed books. And we're here to talk about education. You're the founder of 2 schools, of which the Schumacher College in Devon. So I can say no more, and I'm sure there's lots of stories. Why are you here to talk to us about educating planetary champions?
I'm here because I feel that the education system we have today in all our great universities and schools was designed in the 19th and 20th century. We are in the 21st century, and we need leaders, activists, transformative people to lead us into a new world. And the educational system today we have is not fit for the purpose, not fit for the 21st century. So we need a new kind of education which is earth-centered, nature-centered, human-centered, and not just money-centered and job-centered. So we need a revolution in our educational system. And therefore, we have to change that educational system now. See why I'm here.
Brilliant. So I'm going to ask you how in a second, but before that, maybe you've had this most incredible journey. Maybe explain to us the path that led you to focus on education. Where did it come from? Was there a moment that you said, education is the topic that I want to focus my effort on?
I mean, I'm not really educated. I only have honorary doctorates, but I didn't do PhD. My conviction came from many great teachers, and I met in my life many great, wonderful people. Or I've been inspired by people, and my own experience of life, like you said, walking around the world without any money in my pockets, being vegetarian. I could not have learned what I learned by walking around the world for 2.5 years if I had gone to university to learn those things. I learned about cultures, about languages, about poetry, about nature, about how we have to make peace with nature. So experience of life, that's what greatest source of education for me. And I've been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, I've been inspired by Martin Luther King, I've been inspired by E.F. Schumacher, many, many great people who are champions of planetary education and planetary leadership. And we need new champions. And this is why it is very important to talk about today. Because when we go to university or schools, teachers will look at you and they think that you have no body. You have no body. You have no hands, no heart, no legs, only brain. And not even whole brain, but half brain. Because we have two sides of brain, two hemispheres, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. We spend billions and billions of dollars and pounds and euros and yens and rubles and rupees and so on, just training half brain. So I want a revolution in education to bring education of head, whole head, both sides of brain, education of hearts and education of hands. If we can have that, education of head, education of hearts, education of hands, education of legs. I learned about the world by walking with my two legs. Nietzsche said that don't trust any philosophy which has not been tested by walking. Now our modern system does not allow us to any time to walk. We always go in the car or taxi or train or underground or metro or aeroplane or something like that. We commute, we don't walk. Walking is a great source of learning. If you want to be a champion of education, planetary champion education, please start walking every day. With your legs when you are in nature. Nature is our teacher. All the university teachers we have, they are all giving you stale knowledge. Yesterday's knowledge, academic knowledge. But nature gives you fresh knowledge. So nature is my teacher.
Beautiful. So tell us about some of the design principles of what happens at Schumacher College.
Yes. At Schumacher College, we said that we have to set an example. There's no good in casting the darkness. We have to light a candle. And Schumacher College is a small candle in this darkness of our materialistic, single, half-brain education. So what we do, we say, here in our Schumacher College, the day will start with a short meditation. We should start with our day with who am I? That question. Why am I here? What's the meaning of my life? Who are we? Who am I? Do we know ourselves? If we don't know ourselves, how are we going to learn about the world? So we start our day at Schumacher College with that question, who am I? In a meditation, quiet, silent room. Then, after breakfast, we have a meeting of all Schumacher students, teachers, staff, volunteers. Because they're all living there. So we have a community meeting. Because we say that we are not here educating ourselves individually. We are educating together. It's a journey together, co-creation and co-experience. All our thriving, all our learning, all our adventure are mutual. All thriving is mutual. So we have a community meeting. And then we go, all our students, all our teachers and volunteers go and do some work physically. So a group will go in the garden, a group will go in the kitchen, a group will go in the cleaning, etc. So from 9 to 10, 1 hour physical work. We have to bring the dignity to manual work. And that's what we do at Schumacher College. Then after 10 o'clock, now is the time for kind of intellectual. But there too, we try to bring both left hemisphere and the right hemisphere together. Science and philosophy together. Mathematics and meaning together. And then we have lunch. And then in the afternoon, we take our students out in nature. Along the river, on the Dartmoor, by the sea. Say, again, as I said already, nature is our teacher. So learn from the nature how kind, compassionate, wonderful river is. Always gives water to anybody who is thirsty. Never ever a river has said that you are not a good person, you are a criminal, you are a bad person, I won't allow you to drink my water. That is what we want our students to learn at Schumacher College. Even if somebody is harming to you, even if somebody is hurting you, even if somebody is abusing you, still you give them wisdom and happiness and your love. That is the great challenge that education has to bring, not animosity. So then, going out in nature, and then of course, a group will cook in the afternoon and do evening meal, and then in the evening, we ask our students to teach each other, and share, and sing, and dance, because education is not only, as I said, of left brain, but our poetry and our music and our dance and our singing together, that's part of. So that's the kind of design of Schumacher College. And we run short courses for 1 or 2 weeks. So any one of you can come, look at schumachercollege.org.uk, or we can have 6 months. You can come for, many French people have come for 6 months, learning gardening and learning other things, or you can come for 1 year. And that way you can have a master's degree program accredited by the University of Plymouth. So that's a kind of overall design of Schumacher College.
And what's the age range of your students? I don't know if you call them students or...
Yes. Age range varies. Short courses are mainly attended by, I would say, between 25 and 50 or 60 years old. But the 6 months long courses are maybe between 20 and 35, 40. And maybe master's degree program between 20 and 30. So the kind of age varies.
Okay. And same question I asked to Laetitia and Tom. Can you share a few stories of amazing paths that people have followed after they've been through?
I mean, the purpose of education at Schumacher College is to train young leaders, planetary leaders. And so many of our students have gone to work for the United Nations. Many of our students have been, you had your COP15 at Paris a few years ago. One of our students was a right-hand person of Christina Figueres and Tom Carnac. And then Nigel Topping for COP26 in Glasgow, he was a champion of the government appointed him as a champion of the climate change transformation. And so there are 2 examples I give you. So many of our students become leaders and they start new NGOs, they start new gardens, they start new business. I always say to people when they leave Schumacher College on their last, after 1 year or 6 months, I say, now you go out in the world, don't look for a job. Don't seek a job. Create your own job. Create your own work. Or create a community, a cooperative to work together. So that you are not going and joining the kind of machine of the system that you are already trying to change. But if you can, try to create a new example, set a new example, so that people can see how you can transform and run your economy. And economy should be ecology and economy together. Because economy by itself is not enough. Economy means management of home, our planet home. But ecology means knowledge of our planet home. If we don't know our home, how are we going to manage it? So we always say that your business should be ecological and economic together. And at the moment, actually, economy is not even economy. But our, like London School of Economics, I went there, it's an educational place, and I asked them, do you teach ecology? They said, no, 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 no. We are a school of economics. I said, do you understand the meaning of economics or economy? The meaning of economy is management of home and management of the planet home. And ecology means logos, knowledge. So knowledge of planet home. You are teaching your young people, young students to manage home without knowing what is your home. How are you going to manage something which you don't know? So please change the name of your university. call it LSEE, London School of Ecology and Economics. They are too timid. They are not brave enough, courageous enough to change their name. So they didn't. The Vice Chancellor wrote to me a very nice letter, email, to say, oh, your ideas are very good. We are trying to be more sustainable now, but we can't change the name. So what our students, we say that combine ecology and economy. Make all your business and your kind of activities and your jobs which are nature-centered, which regenerative. Nature is regenerative, and our economy is linear. You take, you use, and throw away. This linear economy has to change to a more circular economy. Nature's economy, economy of nature, is circular. It always goes around. Nothing wasted, nothing polluted, just stays fresh and clean and wonderful and regenerative and feeding our body, quenching our thirst, giving the sunshine. Wonderful economy of nature. Nature is more intelligent, more educated than all the people who come from Sorbonne and LSE and Oxford and Cambridge and Yale and Harvard and all the universities. Because most of the problems of the world today are created by highly educated people. The people who are creating global warming are not stupid people. People who are causing climate change are not farmers and women in Africa or uneducated people. They are highly educated in Harvard and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge and Sorbonne. And so I think education is responsible for the problems of the world today. And therefore, we have to change this education so that we can create a world which has learned the economy of nature.
And Satish, let's talk about the system. So you say the system needs to change, but you've described yourself, you try with LSE to get them to add an E at the end of their logo, and even that is difficult. So how do we pierce through?
So we have to, you know, the big change does not come from the center. LSE is last to change. Oxford and Cambridge last to change. Your Sorbonne in Paris is last to change. The University of Descartes University in Paris, that's the last to change. Descartes is one of the problems of our time. He has started the problem of dualism and separation. Nature and human separate, mind and matter separate. We have to end this separation, and this is not going to come from the center, not going to come from the mainstream. It has to come from the fringe. So you and I have to start, change now. We have to begin some new examples, a great river, like you have a Seine river going through your beautiful city of Paris. That river did not start in Paris. It started somewhere in the mountains. A small trickle, like a Schumacher college, a small trickle. And then other tributaries came, and other tributaries came, and more tributaries came, and they joined and made the river, great Seine river in Paris. In the same way, we have to start many, many, many small organizations, events like ChangeNOW, Schumacher College, and many, many other examples. Then it will become a big movement. So start wherever you are. Don't wait for Macron to change, and Boris Johnson to change, and Biden to change, and Putin to change. They will be the last to change. You and I have to be the leaders of change. What happened?
This is such a beautiful message. It's generating an electric reaction.
So we have to be the leaders of change.
Beautiful, thank you. I have one more question. How do you remain positive in this environment, which is really sometimes difficult?
To be an activist, you have to be an optimist. You cannot be a pessimist and be an activist. Pessimist can be a journalist, but not an activist. And so my optimism comes from two things. One, when I see young people like Greta Thunberg, and not only Greta Thunberg, but there are millions of young people around the world, India, China, America, Africa, Europe, everywhere, Australia. I see young people are not taking this kind of educational system and economic system and political system easily. They are crying for change. They are standing up for change. And that gives me hope. That gives me optimism. That gives me energy. Secondly, I believe that action itself has intrinsic value. We don't have to wait for results. We don't know what the results are going to be, but we have to act. Like you planting a tree. You don't know if the tree will survive or not, but still you plant the tree. We are a gardener. You plant seeds. You don't know whether seasons will come, the snow will come, the frost will come, something, a wind will come, something will stay or not stay, but still you plant the seeds. You plant the tree, you plant the vegetables, you plant the flowers, you plant the herbs. So in the same way, I am planting the seeds of hope. I am planting the seeds of transformation. I am planting the seeds of change. Every day, I'm 85 years old and I'm not tired. I want to remain an activist until the last breath of my life. Thank you.
If that does not give you inspiration, then I give up. Thank you very, very much. We're actually coming to the end of our session, Satish. So I just want to, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of our audience, thank you for these amazing words and inspiration.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It has been my pleasure to be here, and I'll be speaking another, I think 4:15 or something, another session
Fantastic.
I'm doing. So hopefully I'll see you again there.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Should I go that way?
Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot possibly close after this. So all that's left for me to say is change now. Thank you.